Hi, I'm Dr. Margriet Barnard, your host of the Birth and Baby Show, brought to you by Sister Lillian Center and Sensitive Midwifery. We empower moms, midwives, and birth workers to have the best birthing and parenting experience through natural, physiological, and intuitive care, resulting in birth and baby advice you can trust.
This episode is brought to you by Simplex, who has been one of the market leaders for more than 2 decades, providing quality products at an affordable price, trusted by moms and midwives alike. Visit simplex.co.za for a healthier way of life.
Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode, and I'm very excited for today's episode where I will be talking with Cozette Laubser. Cozette Laubser is an author. She just released another book. We're going to be talking about her new book, and she is the director of the Baby Gym Institute. She's also an international childbirth educator, as well as a birthing doula, and she is the mother of 2 busy preschoolers. I'm sure you will be in for a treat. Hey Cozette, welcome. I'm so glad you're here with me in our little studio, and excited about our conversation. You've got lots to share. Please tell us a little bit more about yourself and the work you do.
Thank you very much. Lovely to be here. So I'm Cozette Laubser, and I've been involved with the Baby Gym Institute for 17 years. The founder of Baby Gym is Dr. Melody Diago, who's also my mother. So it's a privilege as mother and daughter to be working together. Around 2018, I wanted to learn more about birth specifically, and then I did Michelle Odar's doula course in Highgate, London. And thereafter, I had a huge change of how I understood things, and a lot of things made more sense. But then I felt I needed to learn more about birth physiology. And then I did childbirth education through Childbirth International. It was online and self-paced, and it was a really, really lovely learning experience. And soon after that, that was Feb 2019, I discovered I was expecting my first son. So all the learning happened right before my own 2 births, and then I had my 2 sons at home, and that really cemented the theory and the practical. And so I've been involved full-time with Baby Gym, but I think the additional learning about birth and pregnancy, it has just cemented it all together. Like we were chatting before, you know, pregnancy, birth, development aren't separate things. They're all really one package deal.
Wow, you said a lot already. Let's unpack it a bit. So basically, you were, before you actually knew it, you were pre-programmed for this work because your mother was quite a woman in developmental science, in neuroscience, etc. And she's the founder of Baby Gym. And then you got roped in, whether you liked it or not. It looked like your path was predestined to go into this direction. And then you learned so much on the way. So what is Baby Gym?
Okay, so Baby Gym is a movement program for very, very young babies. So it's not, you know, there's a lot of stimulation programs for older babies and toddlers and preschoolers, but we really work from full term plus 6 weeks, so roughly 6 weeks, to about 4 months is the prime time, because it's really still, while the baby is still very passive. So it's very gentle, it's baby massage, and it's awakening their senses, just enough sensory stimulation that it's appropriate for their nervous system, and age-appropriate movement. So the reason why we started to work with babies that young is because of South Africa's birth culture, and the fact that a lot of our babies maybe are separated after birth, and then something like massage is a wonderful bonding tool for both the mother and the baby, but it also gives that baby deep proprioceptive input through the whole body, which they hadn't received with contractions and physiological birth. So there's method in the madness. And the gym in Baby Gym is really nothing to do with equipment and gym. All our activities are on the floor with actually as little tools and equipment as possible. It's really the parent or the caregiver who is the tool in this instant to develop the baby. So it's actually parent education. So we teach the mother and the father, or then a caregiver or adoptive parent, we teach the tools to go home and to integrate as a lifestyle. So it's a short course, and the whole idea with that is to age appropriately develop a little one. And like I said, there's a huge emphasis on parent education, because if we have a clear understanding of how the brain unfolds and why the senses and the muscles are important for nervous system development, it becomes easy to create a healthier lifestyle. Because sometimes, learning or development is isolated to a half an hour class once a week or once a month. And that's not what it is. For babies, children, eating, dressing, playing is all learning. It's not separate things. Just like we said, pregnancy, birth, and development aren't separate things.
Yes.
And also, I think with this topic specifically, we wanted to make the links clear between health and development. Development comes after health. You have to be a healthy baby before we can start prioritizing development. But again, birth isn't separate from health. And that is why it's important to package topics together when you're educating adults. To say, listen, we isolate the topics to make it digestible, but actually you can't isolate anything. They're all very much integrated.
Yes. You said something that is important, I think, and that is the birthing culture in South Africa, and I think in many places in the world. Our modernization, medicalization, which has its place, but it has also robbed certain developmental steps, right, for the baby. Maybe unpack that a little bit, because why do we need actually a course? Like student it all be all natural, part of parenting. It might feel a bit intimidating, like, oh, I need to study a whole book again for my baby, Yes. But just unpack that a little bit.
It's an interesting question. So yes, so I think it's important to say parenting does come naturally to some people. And actually in the foreword I say that if it's something that comes naturally to you, that is fantastic. I mean, that is like the ideal. But for many people like myself, I need to understand something, and I need to have just a general big idea of how something works to understand how magical it is.
Yeah.
For me, like understanding how beautiful it is isn't separate from understanding the detail of how it works. So the question was, why is it important in a medicalized country or where there's medicalized birth?
Yeah, because you identified a need.
Yes, okay, so thank you, I'm back on track. So I think what is important to say is there's no right or wrong in what you choose. But I think for me personally, there's a very big difference between choice and a belief that I cannot birth my baby physiologically, or I cannot breastfeed, or my breasts don't produce milk. So there's a huge difference between choice and what is biologically and physiologically possible, I believe. So a lot of, and I don't mean I love my country, it's not criticism, it's a reality that we do things a certain way in our hospitals. But for instance, the fact that we very often, no matter birth route, separate mothers and babies means our biology is affected, because biologically and in ideal birth scenarios, you would never separate a mother and baby. So sometimes it's due to necessity, statistically actually a very small percentage of times. The rest of the times it's protocol. And then it's important to ask, is that protocol really in the best interest in the long term of the mother and the baby? So something simple, like when a mother and baby are together directly after birth, no matter the birth route, there are physiological changes that happen in the mother and the baby's brains, huge changes. So for the mother, for instance, the first 18 hours after birth is like a window of opportunity for her brain to jumpstart her milk production. So we kind of tend to isolate it and say it's the breast. And yes, obviously it is about the breast. But it starts with her brain. And her brain is stimulated in the presence of her baby, skin to skin. So it's phenomenal. We in Baby Gym, our focus is very much the baby. But a mother and a new parent also is 100% reliant on their senses to upskill their brain for parenting. So it's important to know that the flow of information into the brain is via the senses, and that is why the senses are incredibly important in all our interactions. And so in a sensitive time frame, like the moments after birth, when you can't physically sense your baby skin to skin, so it's literally warmth, touch, smell, natural smell, not perfume or deodorant or that primitive smell. That is the way your brain recognizes the baby and the baby, the parent, and then those amazing brain changes that says, right, let's regulate this nervous system, let's adapt to life outside the womb. This is your mommy, this is what she looks like. You've felt her, moved with her, you've heard her, you've smelt her, but you have never seen her. So the sensory systems need to overlap for this time, the 4th trimester after birth. So to go back to why Baby Gym mimics the ideal scenario, but it's not for when the ideal scenario happened, if that makes sense. It's to bridge that gap between the ideal scenario and how do we get a mother and a baby to thrive.
Right.
If maybe they were separated after birth, or if maybe the mom is not coping so well after birth, are there practical little things she can do to feel more in tune with her baby? And I think it can be applied in various ways and forms.
Yeah, I like that. I'm going to ask you later a little bit more on prematurity, but if I hear you well, even if things didn't go like originally hoped for or planned or the ideal, you can actually do a lot to recover that with simple things that you teach in the Baby Gym classes.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that is very reassuring for parents, I'm sure, and you see the great impact of that, I'm sure, with all the work you do. So, but before we go into the non-ideal scenarios and how you can correct that, you wrote an amazing book. I've had the privilege to read it, and it's also in Afrikaans, and it really unpacks the basic building blocks so beautifully for healthy brain development. Can you summarize it maybe in a few, like what are the building blocks for healthy development?
So we called it the most 5 important B's, but I mean it's really impossible to say what are the most important, but in our field we said it's the brain, birth, bonding, breastfeeding and body development. So these are easy ways to really ensure a strong start to life. And I'm not sure if I mentioned this, but development comes after health. So with a baby you can't really separate them, but there are simple considerations that can change how we choose our birth team, how we birth our babies, how we protect that time after birth, how we feed our babies, and how we create a lifestyle at home that supports development. We've been saying now the whole time that, you know, you can't separate one life phase from the rest. And so the key really here is it's parent education, because parents should be the one consistent through a child's life. From babyhood, well, pregnancy, birth, babyhood, toddlerhood, preschool, learning years, sport years, going on to choosing a life partner. Hopefully and ideally the parent is the one consistent adult in that says, no, actually I remember this that way and that way and that way. Or do you remember when you were small, you regularly did this or disliked this? Or, you know, an educator or a therapist would never have that complete picture. And so I'm quite passionate about putting the parent in the driving seat in terms of knowing their child inside and outside as well as they possibly can. And that starts from babyhood, touching your child, and massage is a very simple way to facilitate that. Like we were saying earlier on, for some people, touch and bonding comes very, very like this, instantly and very naturally. Other people like a tool, like massage and steps that says, look at your baby, make eye contact, and then these are the steps you follow. So I don't think there's a right and or a wrong, Margriet, but I think people experience differently.
Yeah.
And for someone who likes to learn and apply, Baby Gym can be incredibly helpful. For many of us, we don't need to read anything and feel very comfortable with the situation. Others not so much. But I think, again, in a country where if you were to go to a gynae's appointment, the chances of you ending with a cesarean section is very, very high. So I think then it becomes all the more important to educate and let people know, actually you do have choices, and we're lucky, you know, in our country it's legal to have all these choices. So a silly example is maybe in 2018 when I felt like I wanted to learn more, It's also probably because I was familiar with Michelle Dawes' work, but I did the course in Highgate, and only when I returned did I learn that there were doula courses available in Johannesburg, in South Africa. It's not mainstream, if I can put it that way.
Yeah.
So if you don't have a sister or a friend or someone in the field who has been through an experience with a midwife and a doula, or maybe even a home birth or a birth center, it really isn't all that common knowledge.
Yeah.
So I think that is a big like a big consideration with writing about topics like this is explore. Here are some words that you can research further. And I think a very big intention with this book is to start a certain thought process. It's not to give you all the answers and to at all be instructional. It's to awaken curiosity and really to say this is a wonderful time to learn as much as you can, to maybe delve about your own preconceived ideas, maybe address some anxieties and fears. But in the end, there's no right or wrong. It's you decide, but just make sure it's an informed decision and not one, because very often we have people in our workshops that work with children, and a very common feedback or a sentence that is very often repeated is, I wish I knew this earlier.
Correct.
So it's for the people who, who typically said, I wish I knew this earlier.
Yes.
Even the lady, Regina Milan, who edited the book, and she was such an incredible woman to work with, she said to me, and she's a granny, I wish I knew this earlier.
Yes.
The lady who does embroidery for our Baby Gym products, she said to me, I'm a granny, I listened to you on the radio the other day, hopefully your podcast soon, Margaret. But she said to me, I wish I knew this earlier.
Yes.
So I think if we get to a point where our natural ways are common knowledge again, that would be a wonderful place to be in.
Yeah, and I think that's where we connect so well in our vision and mission. You on maybe the baby side, and me on the pregnancy, birth side, because it's so important. Because the same applies for us. We have so many moms that come after the second child. They come to find a midwife because I wish I knew, So there's so much education needed, and to make the natural way and the way it's intended to be, bring it back to be the norm, and not the abnormal, and that you almost have to fight for it. So at least we know. But if you're listening and you have a sister or a friend that doesn't know, pass on the messages. A podcast is too short to say everything that we actually want to say, I think. Sure. But just how, I think the basics is, it's not so complicated. It's follow nature the way it's intended, and you will prevent so much. Yes. Because midwifery is so much into the preventative practice, and you guys see it on the other side where things could have been prevented, and then yes, we can recover a lot, but it maybe cost way more energy, way more money. I'm sure you see that.
Yes, we do. Yeah. And that's also why we start to work so young, because the longer you wait, the harder it becomes to rectify bonds, to rectify developmental patterns. And I think it's always easier to work preventatively than remedial.
Absolutely.
And like you said, it's costly, so I think also, again, when the parent is involved in the process, and we see that even with something like the parent's involvement in the NICU and prematurity, when the parent becomes involved, their brain is healthier, because they take that leadership role in taking care of their baby and loving their baby. And although their baby certainly benefits from it, the parent also benefits. So when the parent and the baby, and especially the mom and the baby, where they are concerned, it's never the one benefits and the other one sacrifices. It's always benefit.
Beautiful.
And that is so exciting, I think. Also in researching this book and writing this book, or rather researching the topics, I learned for the first time, and I mean this was after 15 years as a baby gym instructor, we know about parenting, we know a lot about the brain and the body. I learned that the parenting brain changes. You're not born with a parenting brain, it develops in contact with your baby, which I think is wonderful, because for so many generations there was a bit of emotional discord, where I think, in like around the 1950s, 1960s, many of the babies were separated from the mothers routinely. In many of these birth practices, they used chloroform. Margriet, imagine that.
No.
So for 3 days, the mother doesn't see the baby. Obviously, that would influence your parenting brain, how you bond, how you treat your baby. And you know, those babies growing up, it was typically the generations where people said, you don't see and hear children. You know, you must know your place. And for me, those are not separate things. Birth practices 30, 40, 50 years later echo in relationships and family hierarchies. And again, it's not separate from development and potential.
So true.
And development to me isn't, although it certainly also is rolling, sitting, crawling, walking, it's, can I make decisions? Can I choose a life partner that would bring out the best in me in the long term? What are my true talents and what comes naturally to me? That is development. You know, it's not just a set of skills, although it's that as well. It's really in the end, am I a mature and a whole human that has a very distinct purpose and role to play in this world? So yeah,
Sure.
it's a lot broader than just,
Yeah.
you know, but I think you know
It's
this.
far-fetched. Yeah, it goes far. It's on a continuum, and far-reaching. That's the word. And the foundations are so important if you get those right.
For sure.
Yeah. So, because it's November is Premature Awareness Month or Day on the 17th. Prematurity is something that no one wants, and it happens. So that is definitely, doesn't matter how good all your intentions were.
Yes.
If it happens, there's a baby that is behind in development when it comes out and need to survive on its own. Some tips for premature parents.
Yes.
Parents with premature babies. they're also
became
prematurely.
That's true. That's true. So I think what's very important to say is the World Health Organization released a statement, and I must think carefully now, but I think it was 2021 already, that said no routine separation of parents and babies. So in South Africa, hospitals has very different protocols. So find that out. Find out what is the hospital or the birth center where you're going to birth. Obviously, if it's a premature birth, the chances of being in a hospital is very, very good. What are their policies around skin-to-skin contact? Niels Bergman and his wife Jill Bergman have done an amazing work in researching the benefits of skin-to-skin contact. And in babies as young as 26, 28 weeks, there's a like fivefold improvement in birth outcomes. That's the difference between 20% of babies surviving and 100% of babies surviving. That's fivefold. So I mean, huge success in how babies survive, because as they describe it so beautifully, a baby's first need, health and developmentally, is to feel safe.
Yeah.
The only way they can feel safe is by sensing the mother, because the mother is the known. So, and sensing goes back to the senses. Can I touch her? Can I smell her primitive smell? Can I hear her in time? Can I see her? Can I move with her? So you must remember, and it's so simple, a baby born prematurely, so prematurely, let's say it's roughly 40-week gestational age, so full term. Anything prematurely would be before 40 weeks. The ideal scenario would be to mimic in utero conditions. So that means the sensory world should remain the same as in utero. So you would not do any development or stimulation with that child, because they were not meant to receive touch or whatever. So although we're passionate about massage, we would not massage a premature baby because they're not full term.
Makes sense.
So the age appropriate way of sensitive medical care would be to mimic in utero conditions. And that basically means wearing the baby skin to skin for pretty much the whole day. So that is quite controversial, because how do you then sleep with the baby? How do you feed the baby? And I would really encourage your viewers and listeners to follow the work of Dr. Niels Bergman. Even where technology is needed to save a life, you can still use technology and the parent's body.
Yes.
But training, medical training is needed for that. Staff training is needed for that. And they are incredible with doing that. But I think, Margriet, what we can hear today is decisions and learning takes time. And I don't necessarily mean learning like doing a course or reading a book. I mean thinking about things, exploring topics, having conversations. That takes time. So it's typically something that you start before expecting your first child. I think it is so wonderful to have a clear idea of where you want to go with your birth, with starting a family, in the way you choose a partner. Do you view natural processes as the inherent way of doing it, or is it something that would create a lot of conflict? Sometimes it starts out as conflict, and that's why you need a lot of time to journey together.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, so good. So good. And then, so NICU and that care is almost like a topic on its own on how you can implement it, but it's just very important for moms to know about that, what you said, and to ask questions in and around that for the care they're going to be getting if they have a prem baby.
Yes, so I think
the non-separation is key.
Yes, and I think it's important to know you can request it and you can actually insist on it. You know, as a parent, you have the right to say, but I want my baby skin to skin.
Yeah, and luckily it's not that foreign anymore. I think every doctor must be aware. They know about it.
You would be surprised, Margriet.
No, they need to know.
They need to know. They need to know, yes.
Well, there's lots of work to do for educators too, to update education. I'm passionate about that too, to evidence-based practices. And then lastly, I was wondering, I'm sure there will be listeners interested in the baby gym instructor thing. How can you become an instructor? Is that something you would like to get involved with?
Yes, thank you. So we train baby gym instructors once a year, and there's an application process because we want to look at, you know, who affiliates with us, and then there's a theoretical and a practical training side to it, and an 8-week qualification process. So although our training is short, the learning is quite intensive. We supply 4 resources, a manual and 3 books. So a lot of it is self-paced, but then we also spend time together. And then it's a relationship. So it's an ongoing relationship. It's not a once-off training. Yearly there is trainings involved, and a conference we still do in person in Linden, Johannesburg, which is great fun. But currently we are about 45 instructors, of which 3 are in Namibia. So these are basic small owner-operated businesses where the instructors then have groups of mothers and babies, join them in their homes or in their studios. And the whole idea is really women are powerful. Women do such amazing work with other women in a similar life phase. And yes, the idea is just to spend time together weekly once you're qualified, and to journey with women and teaching them how to massage their babies, awaken the senses, get the babies moving. And we have amazing success with the babies reaching their milestones in sequence, which is really important for total brain and body development. So I think the parent education side of what we do, we always give you the why and how. Oftentimes people will say, oh yes, I've seen this activity, you know, in a few different places, but we love telling you why that activity is so incredibly important and how the one skill snowballs into the next one. So I think knowing that golden thread walks, you know, or follows through various phases is empowering.
Yes, I'm even keen to register just for the why and how, yes. So you don't have to be necessarily a nurse or a midwife, it's for anyone.
It's for anyone.
Yes, that loves babies, mothers.
Yes, so we usually say 28 years and older, just because we think that maturity means a lot.
Yeah.
In working with different types of people, different demographics. We've just felt it's worked really well to have someone slightly more mature. And then one of the requirements is either a mummy or a relevant, you know, profession. So a midwife or a educator, you know, just somewhere along the lines you must have some experience in what is the word? like another area that complements.
Yes,
what
that
we
makes
do.
sense.
Yes.
Such beautiful work. May it go from strength to strength. And Cozette has been so kind to donate 2 books. So we're going to run a social media competition for the listeners. So make sure that you go to our website, social media pages, in the month of November. Because somewhere down the line you will be able to enter and win one of these books. And we might also get it on our website if people want to order it. But otherwise, meanwhile, they can just order it from your website.
Yes, it's www.babygym.co.za.
Easy. Thank you so much, Cozette. That was really wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today. If you enjoyed this video, please share this with a friend who will benefit from this. And remember to subscribe and hit the bell icon so that you can be notified whenever we release new videos like this on our channel. We'd love to stay in touch and keep you updated with all our latest content and resources to equip and empower you. So if you're a midwife or any type of birth and baby worker, go to sensitivemidwifery.co.za/free gift. If you're a mom, visit sisterlillian.co.za/free gift for more training and resources. That way we can keep you up to date when we release new episodes like this, plus a few other bonuses. You can also find the links I just mentioned in the show notes. Remember, you're making a big difference because you are shaping the future of humankind. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to journeying with you.